The wedding of Kathy and James was a simple, heartwarming service. The preacher was a young man who had the warmest smile Kathy had seen. He was an Army veteran, and he and James became instant friends as they began to tell each other about their military service. The old man and woman were glad to be a part of the wedding, and they were glad to find out Kathy was not a ghost, but a beautiful young lady. After the service, Kathy told James she informed the people at the lab she would probably stay in 1959 for a long time, waiting for the research people to work out the problem of bringing James back to 2019. One of the scientists told her it may work as it is, but they needed to make sure it could be accomplished without causing a catastrophic event. Kathy told James she wanted them to spend some time traveling around the country so she could get a first-hand look at the way it was 60 years in the past. To finance their travels, Kathy had a list of all the sporting events and the winners and losers. They could use this knowledge to provide them with the funds to travel to almost anywhere. In 1959, most of the betting was paid in cash. They would find these small-time bookies as they traveled around the United States. The bookies always paid in cash, and if they were betting with them in different parts of the country, they would never raise any suspicions of being people that never lost a bet. Kathy said they could use any excess money to purchase rare coins. They would try to find places to bury the coins where they were almost assured it would be the same in 2019 as it was in 1959. After a visit to several bookies in and around Blue Springs, they had enough money to purchase a new car and pay cash, which was common in those days. Kathy would leave the Volkswagen parked at the apartment because this was her unit to travel to each time frame. Over the next 6 months, James and Kathy traveled to all the places that would give Kathy a historical look back. She and James spent most of their time talking about all the changes. Some of the things about technology Kathy was telling him was almost beyond belief. The thing that fascinated James the most was the Internet. James found it hard to believe that a company named Google would make encyclopedias obsolete. The one piece of history Kathy steered clear of was the history of James. She had decided she could not handle the truth about that if it proved to be what she feared. James and Kathy returned to Blue Springs, and James signed another 6-month lease with the old man and woman for the apartment. Then one day, Kathy began to find out what the scientist back at the lab had warned her about. She was pregnant. James and Kathy knew she needed an ID and birth certificate. That would require a considerable amount of money, but it needed to be done. So James doubled up on the betting so they could have the best professional forger to provide her with an almost foolproof birth certificate. Kathy knew she could not travel back to 2019 until after the baby was born. It would probably, as one of the scientists told her, be okay, but she was not going to risk it. She and James had decided that she could return after the baby was born, and the lab would probably have worked out the determination of bringing someone back from 1959. Then Kathy could return and bring James and the baby to 2019. Kathy gave birth to a healthy baby girl they named Kathleen. She decided to wait until Kathleen was 6 months old, and she would return briefly to 2019 to check the determinations of the scientists on bringing back people from 1959. If they told her it could not be done, she would try and convince the Blue Springs lab to let her return to 1959 without forcing her back. The day Kathy returned to 2019 was a sad day for James. He was fearful something would go wrong with this incredible scientific wonder, and Kathy would be lost to them in 2019, and they would be stuck without her in the year 1959. It was a dilemma James could not share with anyone. Kathy kissed James and Kathleen, and then she was gone. Kathy returned to 2019 late in the evening. She was so tired she needed some sleep. At first she thought she was dreaming because the night was filled with the sound of emergency vehicles. One after another, she continued to hear them. When Kathy woke up, the window of her apartment was glowing. She jumped out of bed and looked out. What she saw almost made her faint. From her vantage point on the third floor of the apartment, she could see the Blue Springs lab ablaze, with flames and smoke billowing into the night sky. Kathy grabbed a long coat and ran for her Volkswagen, then headed to one of her transfer points. When she pulled into the secluded spot, she could see the red glow of the Blue Springs lab fire. She pressed the back button, and nothing happened. Kathy started to cry because she knew she was stuck in the year 2019.